Well. Hello. Welcome. We are back at the G Spot, the place where you can find great support, purpose, opportunity, and most important, transformation. I'm your host, Dr. G. Alpha Palmer, and I'm back. I'm back. I'm excited. I'm excited about what we're going to talk about. And it's important to understand that the biblical, before I get started, I want you, please, share, like, and these videos, please. I need your help to do that because I think I have a message that can help. And it's not a religious one, even though we have taken my source document, which I believe is the biblical narrative, and have transformed it or used it for religious purposes. But it is not a religious document. It is a manual to help humanity to learn how to live and to function in this realm. And so it behooves all of us to gain an understanding about this document or narrative. It's not so much a document as it's a narrative. So here we go. Um, what I'm trying to do is to explain what biblical masculinity is, and in doing that, what I'm doing is I'm taking you through basically stages of development, cognitive, cognitive development, physical development, and to shape and to form um, a narrative that will allow us to see why masculinity is and why it operates and functions the way that it does. Why is it important? Because of relationships. A lot of us are in relationships or learning to or getting involved with people um, that really we need to be conscious of where they are developmentally as well as physically. But we're gonna really get into some interesting stuff here today. So here we go. I want to back up and talk a little bit about the the boy. Again, it's a boy, and this boy, he's between the ages of 13 and 18. He's still a boy. Believe me, he's still a boy, and this boy um, begins to act in a certain way. But we're going to talk about it. But up to this point, both the boy and the girl have been pretty much developmentally equal. Um, but again, not the same. But now, here's what happens in this particular phase. Um, the 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 boy continues um, to operate in childhood. He's a child. It's late childhood, but he's still a child. Whereas the the quality changes and the girl begins to develop faster, and she moves on to her young adult age or her young adulthood at the age of 13, 12, actually 12. She gets there quicker. She moves quicker. She develops quicker mentally and physically. And we know that that they do. They operate and they function and they develop quicker than do the boys. So in this stage, what happens is the boy is in his late childhood, and but some things begin to happen developmentally. Some of the markers that he begins to experience are things like growth spurts, and in that growth spurt, he becomes awkward and clumsy and things of that nature. But at the same time, he begins to get bigger feet. He begins have to develop and grow pubic hairs, and he begins to do he begins to become more muscular. He becomes more muscular, and he begins to identify with that muscularity, and as a result, he begins to understand through through those ages and involvement with contact sports and things of that nature, that force, strength, and control becomes very, very important cognitive markers for him. And because those things are very important to him, he begins to really lean on those things: force, strength, and control. But he's a child. We have grown men doing the same thing. You know why? He's still a child. Okay, so what we've got to do is we've got to be able to identify these developmental markers and to accept where they are and what their usefulness, but to begin to move beyond those. And that's where our problem for some men are, because you have grown men still living in the past, still trying to be that high school jock that they were, and they're 40 years old. He's trying to be a rapper, and he was doing that 20 years ago, because he still have not developed cognitively. He's still in late childhood, but he's a grown man. Dangerous. Okay, so let's get back to this 13 to 18-year-old boy. And I did say boy. Okay, but he's understanding the importance of his masculinity. His body is forming. Not only that, but at this time he's beginning to understand sex and liking sex, and not only liking sex, but becoming addicted to sex. Okay, and so it's important that we understand that these developmental markers take place. Also, that those cognitive markers of force, strength, and control become the place where he resides. He sets up house in those areas, because it's in those areas that he's going to, in some cases, spend the rest of his life. The rest of his life. Also, at this time, some of his cognitive strengths is the whole idea of winning. It becomes important, and that's why in athletics, and even still to this day, and I'm one of them. I have my favorite sports team, and I identify with that winning, and hurt when they lose, But that's the whole idea between understanding that that's what it is and not residing there. We identify with teams that win and lose. They win, we win. They lose, we lose. But this 13 to 18-year-old, it is dominant in his life that winning and losing becomes very, very important to him. It's the use of that force that predicates him to really want to win. He wants to win. He wants to be the best. He wants to be number one, right? And it's that cognitive idea of dominance. He's got to dominate everything. He's got to dominate. He's got to dominate in school. He's got to dominate in sports. He's got to dominate in relationship. He's got to dominate in every area of life. And it's that insatiable desire to dominate that causes problems in relationships. Okay. Now, those are some of his strengths. That idea of winning, and in its proper perspective, it's what drives that male. And it's nothing wrong with that. It's nothing wrong with having to be driven to win in its proper place. It's not a bad thing to want to dominate in certain areas. Okay, so that's important as well. Now, one of the weaknesses that he has is that he hates to lose. He hates to be dominated, and he hates to be controlled. And when those things happen, he uses what's available to him: force, strength, and control. He uses his muscularity. He uses his physical presence. But he doesn't have the cognitive development to rightly divide between what's right and wrong, and how address those areas that he may feel he's losing. So what he does, he has a tendency to use violence. He has a tendency to use violence, and he sees that violence, that force, that strength and control that he's used on in athletics or whatever, wherever he learned how to use them. And one, he saw that they got results for him. And so he resorts back to them and use them as his go-to so that he can win. So that he can win. Again, understand, this is not a man. This is a child. He's 13 to 18 and he's in his late childhood. Now think about it, guys. Think about you back at that age between 13 and 18. It was confusing. It was really, but yet you were going through some changes. You were going through some changes. And those changes happened to be physically more so than psychologically or cognitively. Those changes that we experienced, we learned on the field of athletics. And it's still today, athletics is important to us. Some of us, and I'm one, I love athletics because I'm an athlete. I've played in sports from the age of 10, right on up through the military. So I understand. I understand the place that athletics plays in one's life. And that's not a put down. What I'm saying is we've got to understand, identify and understand its place, its rightful place in our relationships and in our lives. As we do that, we become more and more effective because we know how to apply force, strength, and control when we need to and when we don't need to, because sometimes we're doing it in places and in times when we shouldn't. Right? So that's and I'm not trying to do too much at one time because it's important. Some of you already know this stuff, and that's fine. It's fine. But are you applying it in your relationships? Have you realized some things? Some of you have picked people who are adults. You have picked adult men, physically adult, mature, but psychologically, cognitively, and emotionally are still in late childhood. And you wonder why there's violence. You wonder why there's control. You wonder why there's force. Because you picked a boy. You've picked a child. That's the problem. So it's not so much him as it is you, ladies. You have to understand who you're choosing, right? Who you're choosing. And so what we're going to do as we proceed, we're going to address some things on how you can identify him in this day and hour. We're going to talk about it. We have to talk about that when we start talking about biblical femininity. So here we go. Adam, and I'm going to bring these two together because Adam was in that garden developing, just like we do. He developed, and once he developed to a place of being able to walk about, yet he was still immature, and that's where he began to learn things. He began to see again that he was able to dominate through knowing what was around him, using his muscle, his force, his development to begin to win in the garden. And so as he began to win, something happened. Remember where the garden was? The garden was eastward in Eden. Now, understand this. Eden was a place, but the Garden of Eden was an enclosure within the garden. It was an enclosure within the garden, and it was located eastward in Eden. It was on the east side. not the west side, the east side. Okay, but let me ask you a question. What happens every day, every day in the east? Some of you got it. What happens? What happens every day in the east? The sun rises, doesn't it? The sun rises. And so what happened was when the sun would rise, Adam would look out beyond the garden and he would see what was out there. Because when the sun rises, you can see what's on the horizon. And Adam wanted to use force, strength, and dominance to go take that land. You may say something that's going to blow some of you away. There's no such thing as the fall of man. There's no such thing. That is a religious notion that we've been taught. I'll say it again. There is no such thing as the fall of man. We didn't fall anywhere. The universe knows everything that you're going to do even before you do it. Everything. Nothing catches the universe off guard. Nothing. It's intentional. Adam was not supposed to stay in the garden. Just like the baby, you weren't supposed to stay in your mother's womb. When you got to a certain age, when you got to a certain point, it was time to leave your mother. It was time to leave the enclosure. It was time for Adam to go. If Adam was supposed, like us, or was supposed to have dominance, let us make man in our own image and after our own likeness, and let him have dominion. If he was supposed to have dominion, it's innate in Adam, it's innate in man to dominate. We're supposed to want to dominate. And we use our physical design to do it. That's why men have bigger shoulders, more muscle. The physicality is there. And what needs to be equally to the challenge is our cognitive and our emotional development. That's what needs to be equally at the forefront. So, as Adam looked out and he began to see what was out there, that there was land, there was opportunity, huh? There was a place, there was opportunity to transform and to be dominant, which was the universe's intention all along. But religion won't tell us that. Religion wants to tell us that we are these wretched creatures full of sin. And that's another thing we need to talk about. There's no such thing as sin, not the way they teach it. Woo! It's going to get bumpy. It's going to be bumpy because we're going to kick over sacred cows. We're going to kick over those religious sacred cows. We're going to kick them over because they are stopping us. They have stopped us, hindered us in every area of life. They really have. So Adam looked out and he saw all that. And he says, well, you know what? I look at me. I got all this muscle. You know, I want to dominate. I got this ability. I got this thing inside of me and say, I want to go out here and take on the world. That's what he wants to do. And it was put in him like that. Gentlemen, you are supposed to dominate. But it's understand this. You are to dominate situations, circumstance, and environment, never people. You're not here to dominate people. Mm-mm. That's our problem. We want to dominate people. Sexism, racism, all are centered on dominating people. When in all actuality, we were formed to dominate our environment, the area of our under our influence. And that area that of our influence is in our area of purpose. That's where we're supposed to dominate. We're going to talk about it. We're missing it because we are trying to do things outside of our area of expertise. We're not designed for it. It's not our mission. It's not our assignment. Because most of us don't understand how our design, mission, and assignment comes together to formulate our purpose and how to go about doing it. But that's what we that's one of the things that I do with one of my businesses is to help people to identify those characteristics. What is your purpose? What is your why? How do I apply it? Where is my area of expertise? How do I dominate? I want to help you. And in doing that, we're going to grow in relationship. We'll make better choices. Yes, we will. Well, I've gone a little over this time. I try to keep it, a little shorter than 20 minutes. Just went over a little bit over 20. But I'm hoping that you're enjoying this and you learned something. We're going to keep going. And I'm hoping that you'll ride with me. I appreciate you. Till next time, Dr. G. Alpha Palmer. Peace.